I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast, and it's a different podcast format than everything else out there. I bring together a new and experienced investor on the episodes and let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered to push their business along to the next level. And if you're an aspiring apartment investor yourself, you probably have the same questions. So now, before we get to the next episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little bell below to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
That said, Manny, we got Arthur on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Since, you're very experienced yourself, you've done a lot of different things in different states. So how do you go about building a team in those different states? And how do you know that team is performing to your expectations?
In Indiana, I had to hire a property management company. I had to shop around, get the best people, and then the person who is in charge of my account has to work really, really closely with that person and make sure that all the decisions that she makes on a daily basis is what I would have made if I would have been on the ground. And a lot of times it's a conflict of interest for property management companies because they want to turn over a lot of times because they get paid for every lease that they sign. So it's very important you have a fixed amount from gross that you get, and you negotiate up front what would be the maintenance costs. And then any major CapEx issues that will come up, at least 3 bids need to be made.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Very excited for today's show. It's another one of our Ask the Expert episodes, and we have 2 guys on the line with us that are going to bring a ton of value. We got Arthur Drozd and Manrup Sandhu. Arthur, you're up first today, so welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you taking your time. Do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into investing into apartments.
I immigrated from Soviet Union when I was 23 years old and came to California and got into first a car business. I really wanted to be in commercial real estate right away. I got the license, I got everything going, but I had to take a little break from that because of the family. And then was in the car business for about 15 years. It was really hard to get into real estate in Bay Area because of the entry points were so high. So my idea was to maybe buy one piece of property and start with that. But luckily for me, 2008, 2009, there was a subprime crisis that I was watching very closely. And during that time, I realized that a lot of banks are going to lose a lot of money because I was going to the auctions and watching prices go down. So I ended up buying several properties in the town called Vallejo, as a Bay Area town. And at the time, you could buy them pennies on the dollars from the bank. So let's say the property owner owned $500,000. They overextended themselves on the loan. It was during subprime crisis, and I would buy it from the banks for $50,000 for the price of permits, basically. So use permits, it would be like $55,000. You would buy a whole property with duplex, with the land and everything for like 50, 60, 70,000. So I ended up buying a lot of them, flipping some out of some single families and flipping some, but left a multifamily properties in the portfolio. It was actually very interesting because at the time Vallejo was going through bankruptcy as a city, and they had very few policemen on the streets and very few firefighters, and there was a lot of services cut off, and people were afraid buying in Vallejo. So it was perfect time to buy, but it was kind of scary. But then I thought, I bought it for all the wrong reasons. I thought there was going to be a huge inflation because at the time, Congress voted for a $760 billion, I believe, in bailout at the time. And I thought,
which at the time seemed huge, but now looking back at it.
Yes, exactly. At the time, it was like, it's an enormous amount of money. And my gut feeling was, because I lived through inflation in Soviet Union. So hyperinflation. And that was my biggest fear, because I've seen it happen in a matter of months when a Russian ruble will go from 10 rubles to a dollar to 30, and then to 50, and then to 150, and how it devastated the whole economy and made a lot of people who worked all their lives, all their savings disappear in one day. So that was my biggest fear. So my fear was that the only way to protect your money is to invest in real estate. That's the only way I could understand, because it's something real that produces income. So and for those reasons,
sorry about that. I saw a political cartoon several years ago during that hyperinflation period in Soviet Union, where a little old lady has a wheelbarrow full of bills, and somebody comes up to her, dumps the cash, and takes the wheelbarrow because it was worth more. But that's anyway, that was something that was from that Soviet era hyperinflation time frame.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my biggest fear at the time, but it turned out to be not the case. It turned out that $760 billion was not enough as a bailout. But and the technology that we have that produces a much better productivity for everybody kind of minimized all the inflation over the years. So I didn't take that to account. And what ended up happening is Web 2.0 happened. And about 2012, Facebook went public, and all the other technology companies in the Bay Area went public. And a lot of people came into the country from all over the place to run Web 2.0, engineers, programmers, and a lot of people in high tech. And it lifted all the rental prices in the city so high that they start pushing that further away from San Francisco, first to Vallejo and Oakland, then further away.
Yeah.
So it lifted all the prices on the properties that I bought for pennies on the dollar into astronomical levels. So, sorry.
Yep.
So my idea was, what would be next? So I went to next town that I thought would explode, and that was Sacramento. And that happened probably a few months later. I bought 3 buildings there, and then I couldn't buy there anymore. Next was what's going to be a next place that's going to catch on fire, and that's logically was Nevada. So I went to Las Vegas, bought 4 properties there, 4 multifamily properties there. A year later, that market exploded. So for me, that was logically what's next. So I went to Oklahoma. Oklahoma started catching up on fire really quick with prices going up. So then I decided what would be the next market. And then after much research, for me, it was Indiana. I know you guys will want to know why, so we'll leave that probably for later.
Well, let's actually talk about it right. I think right now is a great time for that question, because you talk about going to the next hot markets, and it sounded like, so far you've been successful at picking a bunch of winners. For the first one was, as you state, for the wrong reasons. You're expecting hyperinflation, but you got your Googles, you got your Facebooks, you got your Silicon Valley getting blowing up, in land value and population in 2012 onward. How did you, what you said logically Las Vegas and Sacramento and Oklahoma you expected them to grow. What were the things that you were looking at that led you to believe that these cities would end up growing like they have?
Well, it was easy with Sacramento, because Sacramento is an hour and 45-minute drive from San Francisco, and a lot of people would live somewhere in between and commute, or people who were working class, or people who could not afford to live in San Francisco Bay Area, but they have to commute to work. They were moving closer to where they can afford to live.
Right.
Sacramento was very logical for that, and then right around that time, I learned that we have about 6 to 7 million doors shortage of affordable housing in the United States. And looking at the cities where the shortage is the most profound, Sacramento came out on the list as one of them, because building is cost prohibitive, because just a use permit is about from $50,000 to $50,000 per door. Housing there. So if you're buying an apartment building at $60,000 to $70,000, $80,000 per door, to build brand new, just a use permit just to permits is 50 to 55,000 per door. You buying an affordable housing, and whoever's going to build anything, they cannot build affordable housing.
Yeah.
It'll never be affordable to begin with. Las Vegas was the next market for me because it became so unaffordable in Seattle and Los Angeles and San Francisco, and moving out of coastal areas altogether. Even Sacramento became more expensive. So that's why Las Vegas was a bargain. And right now, Las Vegas is on fire still as a rental market goes. I think last year it was almost 20% increase in rental values.
Mm-hmm. So basically, long story short, you're looking at a lot of the demographic trends. You're looking at where people are moving and the reasons behind it, and just projecting, hey, real estate in California is getting super expensive. First San Francisco Bay Area is getting super expensive, and California in general is getting super expensive.
It started with that. It started with that, but then there's a lot of other factors that kicked in last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly now it's environmental factors.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, we have a lot of fires in California now. So now it's called a fire season, right? Like many would tell you that, you have monsoon, which is a rainy season, right?
Yep.
And it's a name for a whole season, right? So there's 3 to 4 months it rains, right? So now it's called a fire season in California.
Yeah.
So it happens every year. So you cannot breathe. Everybody's wearing masks outside. There's a shortage of water. There's a drought that we're going into a third year, and it's a second drought in the last 10 years. So once you start looking at trends there, trends are not very good. I mean, we were looking to buy property in Sonoma, Solano counties, Napa counties, and to build something, you have to dig 3 times deeper to get to the water because the water bed is now so low. So there's a shortage of water. And plus there are some political problems as well. You have rent control and a lot of other issues, not very friendly for running a multifamily business in California. So, but environmentally, I was looking for other states. What would be the other states that would have water? It would be, and then they will not have forest fires.
Yeah.
Oklahoma and Indiana were on that list. What are the states are that, now we call them red states, but what are the states that are landlord friendly? Oklahoma and Indiana, both of them fit the bill. And then what are the states that have increasing population? Many lives in Indiana. He will tell you probably the population of Indiana is increasing by 0.4, 0.5% each year now. There was a period where a population after a lot of automotive manufacturing left Indiana around the Great Recession. And a lot of towns really got crashed, but the property values reached such low levels in the last few years that they became a bargain again. So kind of like Vallejo was in 2008, 2009, a lot of suburban Indiana properties became really, really, really attractive. And so that's why I was looking at states like that have demographically increasing now. The property values are on the increase. They're still very cheap. You still can buy stuff at 7 to 8 cap. But if you're looking at a world of a 3-degree world now, it's called that, right? When if the weather changes and climate changes and the world is going to start experiencing +3 Celsius temperatures, what is the market that actually going to perform better, and then we'll have less environmental problems? Oklahoma and Indiana was on that list. So that's to answer your questions about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good reasons. And incidentally, I lived in California for I think 8 or 9 years, and the fire season, we were evacuated from our place a couple of times. And you also mentioned water. I don't think I've ever paid more for water than anywhere else in the world. I mean, my water bill for a single family home was consistently $200 to $300 a month. And I think you're right. A lot of people, because of the scarcity of water, which leads to the fires, and leads to high bills, a lot of people are seeking greener pastures, so to speak. And then Indiana, I mean, I've been watching trends as well. They have been growing, and cities like Chicago and Detroit have both been shrinking. are you seeing like a lot of Chicago and Detroit transplants moving into Indiana, or where do you think a lot of that growth is coming from?
Tenants that I do get in Indiana, the ones that applications I do look at, I do have a property management company that takes care of that. But when I'm curious to see where tenants are coming from, it's interesting. Some of them are moving as far as Florida. Some of them are moving from Tennessee, from across the border. But it's the reasons behind that is because, again, there's a lot of people are concerned that a coastal property is now becoming a danger to be in because of a lot of problems that environmentally that could happen to those coastal areas. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears and let's talk a little more specific about one of the properties that you've closed on recently. So, is there one that you especially like that you'd like to share today?
Well, it's probably we can talk about Indiana probably better.
Let's do it.
Because many is in Indiana. Because the last 4 deals in Oklahoma I bought were a brand new construction. I bought it from developers that they were finishing it up, because it's a different trend. It's a different type of buildings and a different type of assets altogether. But the ones in Indiana, I mentioned to you guys before, there was a tower, a 13-story tower in Anderson. There was a property in Muncie, which is 50 townhomes. So we can talk about this deal. Muncie is a property as a 50 townhomes built in, I believe, in 1985. It consists of mainly 3-bedroom, 2-bath property buildings with there were 2-car garages.
Nice.
And the property was mismanaged for many, many years, and a lot of tenants were subprime, as we call them, tenants, and it brought a lot of problems. And the property was not upgraded for many, many years, and the market rents per unit there should be at around $1,100 to maybe $1,150 to $1,200 per unit for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhomes with 2-car garages. But they were, the previous owner was doing all bills paid at $800 a month.
Wow.
And utility bills at like between gas and electric is between $400 to $500. Wow. So you can only imagine what the net net on that was. So slowly I'm repositioning that property, getting a lot of tenants that were not paying to get either assistance or to have some payment plans with them. And then a lot of units that become available, we remodel and put them up for at the market rents. So, and then once you do that, so the difference you can see that, if the market rent is $1,100, when I bought it, it was at what, 800 the rents were. So there's about 35 to 40% increase in rents there, right? So that could be achieved right away if it's managed right. So that's what I'm doing with that property.
Now, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, as far as multifamily, that's a larger, floor plan, plus the 2-car garages. Now, I'm just thinking out loud here. I mean, do you get a lot of tenants there that tend to be sticky and tend to stay for longer periods? It seems to be something that would attract the family, a small family, and be more of a long-term rental than live there for a year and then move again.
Yeah, no, that's the idea. That's the idea, to keep it as a long-term property that people stay for much longer. When I bought it 3 months ago, it was 100% occupied. But again, as I mentioned, the previous owner filled it up with a lot of people on all bills paid program just to fill it up.
Yep.
And it was not very profitable for him. So I guess that's why he decided to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. And incidentally, I mean, when I see something that's 100% occupied, the first thing that goes through my mind is it's probably undervalued as far as the rents go, because, typically if you're at market rents, you're usually right around the market vacancy rate as well. So, quick clue, anytime anything's advertised, it's 100% occupied, I'm thinking, rents are probably low. There's probably a little bit of room for, increase there. But Shifting gears one more time, a question I like to ask everybody, just to kind of get a, peer into your soul, so to speak. What's your big burning why?
Well, money is the tool that you can use to do a lot of things, and it provides you with freedoms to do a lot of other things. So it provides, for me, the big why is being free to do other things in my life, the things that I enjoy, and sometimes give back. So I have a couple of projects in mind that I'm working on. So hopefully they will pan out.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, like I said, money's a tool that helps us to do other things, and love that you're using time and money to also give back. That's something that's been very important for me. And then last question before we introduce Manny, what's next for you?
I'm working right now on a project. It's an aggregator of financial credit. It's called Ready Land Go. What I realized I did 7 deals this year in the space, in the commercial multifamily space, and I realized that the biggest problem is not finding the properties, it's getting them financed. And getting them financed at the right terms. And it takes a lot of times because you send it to a lot of banks, you send your information to a lot of lenders, and sometimes you hear from them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes they come in with one term sheet, and then during the deal they come back with a completely different.
Yeah.
I realized, wouldn't that be easier and take so much less of your time if you send it to one space and it shops for you and it gets you the best deals, and the 2 or 3 offers. It would be the easiest way. So once I realized that, I got all the lenders I've been working with over the year, put them together, I get them to agree to work with me on this, and I came up with a Ready Land Go. It's a one side, it's an aggregator that's basically puts together people who are trying to finance or refinance their property with the lender and gets the best deal for them.
Well, that's awesome. I've been able to look over the website. It's a very, very well done website, and the idea behind it is solid, especially for the newer investors. The lending piece. I'll be honest. We didn't get the best loan for our first property because, we probably didn't know exactly
where to go,
and what factors were important. So, if you're solving, a lot of those problems and helping people, giving people one spot or one-stop shopping spot for commercial loans, I think that's a valuable product.
The biggest thing about this is that you solve not only that problem. It's the biggest thing is LTV, as you know.
Yeah.
Like you could get the same deal done at 65% LTV, or you can get the same deal done at 80% LTV, right?
Yeah.
So all my deals I did this year, 7 deals I did this year, and they're all at 80% LTV.
Yeah.
So that means it allowed me to do more deals. If I would have done deals at 65 or 70, I would have done maybe 1/3 less of deals.
Yeah.
So, and that's a big reason why I thought, that would be very important for people to get into their side and get the best terms, so they can get the highest LTV, the lowest interest rates, and lowest upfront points.
Yeah, I think where we're at today, I mean, your lending has to be spot on, and having better terms on a loan can take a mediocre deal and turn it into a good deal. So we'll be closing on one. Let's see, today's Monday. We'll be closing on one on Thursday where we got 80% LTV. Actually, 80% LTC is what we got on this particular product. At 70%, it wasn't a good deal.
Yeah.
So at 75%, it was mediocre. At 80%, it was screaming. So. I think that's very valuable as well. So, and for anybody listening, if you're interested, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, readylendgo.com, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're interested in that, check it out. That said, we have Manny, who's been waiting patiently on the line with us now. So, Manny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Very excited.
All right. And you are in Indiana, correct? We're at
Indianapolis, just right in the Midwest, right there.
right in the heart of the state, right? So
Crossroads America.
Crossroads of America. Is that what it's called? I've only driven through. So nice. Crossroads of America. Well, welcome to the show today, and do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Manrup, but I like to go by Manny. I had finished up my time at IU, Indiana University. I studied finance there. And so like how further like back do you want me to go?
Really as much as you're comfortable. I mean, just enough to give us good background of who you are, where you're from, and that way if people are interested, they hear something that resonates with you, they can reach out.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess just kind of talk about a little bit like my starting time in college and now like wanting to do real estate. When I originally started in college, I wanted to become a banker, like investment banking. I wanted to go into that. A lot of my friends, they did that type of field, either banking or consulting. That's where they said there were the big bucks were at. And so, I studied finance. That was my main route I wanted to go. But those roles are not easy. You have to talk with 50 people. And these aren't even at the same places. Like I had an opportunity, I'll get into this further, but like to get into banking, you got to talk with like an associate. First, you have to talk with an analyst at like one place like in Chicago, and then he'll connect you if he likes what you're saying and he likes you. He'll connect you with an associate who's like in a different location. So it's a lot of back and forth and just like people pleasing in a way. And so, talking with 50 people just to even be considered for an opportunity in banking, that to me. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, was just like pleasing others. But I did have an opportunity. And so I think in summer 2019, I did do a investment banking internship with RBC in Chicago. And that internship, it was good, but it wasn't something I want to do long-term. They do say like, a lot of people, they'll make, 80 to 85 right out of college if you get into banking. But when you're working like 80 hours a week, if not more, that's mental strain right there.
Yeah. And I mean, making a good salary is great, but at the same time, if you're putting 80, 85 hours per week in, I mean, the salary all of a sudden doesn't seem to be the most important thing anymore.
Sure. Especially like during that summer, very little time. I didn't get to speak with my parents very much. I was just always in the office, just doing modeling, making PowerPoints for the presentations, all those type of things. And so I did that, and that was my sophomore year. And then towards my junior year, I did a real estate class because it was part of my finance curriculum. You had to take some sort of elective. So I did a real estate class. I really liked it. I was like, there's so many different ways you can save money on taxes, depreciation, have people pay you while you're sleeping type of thing. I was like, banking can't compete with this, And so, but, that was something very appealing to me. So I did some classes, participated in clubs, and then I did an internship for a private institution here in Indiana in their lending department. And so from there, I really have liked it. And so even now I'm in evaluation role for a very, very good real estate firm. So it's definitely good, but, better than working for someone, it's better to also, have your own thing going too. So.
Yeah, I like, especially like that you realize that early on, so I think when I was your age, I was still on the, find a good job and work for somebody else. And
he's way ahead of us. He's way ahead of us. You are like 20 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
You're in the right time in the right place.
Yeah. So good for you for at least recognizing that. I kind of thought that the path to my success would be finding that $80,000 a year job, but so let's talk about your big burning why, and then I'll hand you the microphone and let you get on with the questions. But what is your big burning why?
Just my main big burning why is just I don't want to work my whole life. Even the role I'm in now, very unfiltered response. It's fine. It's definitely a learning experience, but it's not something I plan on doing long term. Like that's a bit off topic, but like it's sunny outside, similar to what Mr. Drozd was saying. Having the freedom to do whatever you want, it's sunny outside, and rather than be working at a desk, I do want to like go outside, or I do want to, spend time with my parents and, friends and family. And so that, and then on top of just, real estate in itself is something I enjoy a lot more. It's definitely a lot more sustainable. especially, as COVID has shown. So sustainability and freedom are my two main big,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's huge. And once again, good on you for recognizing that early on in your life, so you don't have to, trudge through, the regular grind that everybody else does for a long time. So, that said, Manny, we got Arthur on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Sure, yeah. So I really enjoyed hearing about his background, especially here in the home state too. I guess one of my questions, just as mentioned, regarding with the brokers. So how do you go about, picking one specific broker that can work based on your needs, and at all, the clients that probably want to work with them, how does he pick you? I got a deal here, I want to send it to him first. How do you go?
Well, in my particular situation, I was very lucky. When my first deal I did in Indiana, I did with Aaron Kuroiva, a broker from Marcus and Millichap. And he's a leader of the group there. He had the tower and Anderson under contract somewhere when I called, and I said, if it does happen to fall out of escrow, could you please call me back? And he did when it did fall out of escrow. And so we worked diligently about 6 months together, and I get to know him really well, and he got to know me really well. We overcame a lot of obstacles to get that deal done. And that's how he learned who I am. And a few lunches and dinners later, and a lot of phone calls later, we knew that it's probably going to be a good relationship. So that's how it started. And so on the next deal, when he had it, he called me and said, I have another deal for you. And then another deal. So I ended up buying 3 buildings from him in suburban Indianapolis this year alone. And I was looking at the market, and I really like Indiana for all those reasons that I mentioned before. But the brokers, you pick one and then you make a relationship, because there's not only these people are going to be selling those properties for you later. They will know you and your properties and how they're performing, where they are, what you did with them, what was the capex, what kind of tenants base you have there. They'll know everything about it. And during the time of your ownership, and they would know, is it a good time for you to reposition yourself and maybe sell it or refinance it and into a larger property? So, and you would be the first one they will call and say, hey, you know what, I have somebody who wants to buy your size of the property, I don't know, whatever it is, 20, 30 unit building, and would you be interested in selling it? And then that will give you time to work it on those time frames and not to rush into a 1031 exchange. It'll give you time to look for something else, and maybe that same broker will find you a replacement deal that for your 1031 exchange, so you can grow into. So my advice to you is just nurture relationships. Take people to lunch, on a bike ride, and just have a lot of talks with a lot of people that have a lot of deals going through their desk. And I think the Marcus and Millichap in Indianapolis is the best place to start. They're the biggest. I think they grew their office though to the largest office, I think, in Indiana.
Yeah, I'll say something similar. I mean, the first property that I got under contract, I was banging my head against the wall with, phone calls and emails. And it wasn't until, my chosen market was South Carolina, and I was living in, the DC area. It wasn't until I got into my car, drove 8 hours down the road, and met with brokers that I started getting traction, and it was sitting across the table from them and, over a cup of coffee or beverage of choice, and walking properties with the brokers. I think that is really what made a big difference for me, was just that personal face-to-face meeting, as opposed to being a random guy on an email or calling on a cell phone.
Manny, I have a question for you though. What size of a building you want to start with?
Ideally, that's actually a bit of a funny question for me, because I haven't actually worked with a broker yet, but since I'm so familiar with Indiana as a whole, I've been here for over 10 years. I just know this specific area that I've been really looking at. So it's actually a self-storage opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I'm really right now, I don't have much of a criteria. I only want this because, I don't have anything going yet. But it's a self-storage. And ideally, either like the 100+ units are where I've like, it's a lot more sustainable. If you lose one tenant, you still have 99 plus more, but like lose one tenant like a triplex, 66% of occupancy, and so just a lot more sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Since you're very experienced yourself, you've done a lot of different things in different states. So like, how do you go about building a team in those different states, and like, how do you know that team is performing to your expectations?
You're absolutely right. Team is the most important in that location. So I had to fire a couple of managers this year in those cities, and I prefer to have property managers that I trained and they work specifically for me and they just do what I need them to do. But in particular case for Indiana, I had to fire my first manager. She was not performing, so I had to let her go. But in Indiana, I had to hire a property management company. I had to shop around, get the best people, and then the person who is in charge of my account has to work really, really closely with that person and make sure that all the decisions that she makes on a daily basis is what I would have made if I would have been an owner on the ground. So because property management company, that's the only property management company I have. Everybody else, everywhere else, I have a team of people as a property manager and maintenance person and an eviction people. So it's usually work in a team, but they strictly work for me. But a property management company in Indiana, I have is trained to work around my schedule on this. So it's very important that they need to know that if the expenditure is over $300, they need to call you. It's very important that they know if there's a big problem that they need to fix, they need to call and make at least 3 bids on it. If it's a collapsed sewer line, or it's a leaky roof, or it's the elevator that is not working, whichever problem it is, at least 3 bids, because the property management companies have a tendency to just get a first bid they get along, so they can move on, so they don't spend too much time on it because it's not their money. And a lot of times it's a conflict of interest for property management companies because they want the turnover a lot of times because they get paid for every lease that they sign. So it's very important you have a fixed amount that from gross that you get. The company that I found is at 5%. Mm-hmm. And you negotiate up front what would be the maintenance costs if they need to do per hour, and it needs to be reasonable. Like the contract I have is at $40 an hour, so it has to be discussed up front. And then any major capex issues that will come up, at least 3 bids need to be made. So anything on any expenditures over $300, they need to contact you. So those are the parameters that I set up for a management company, and so far it's been working for me.
Yeah. When you asked that question, as Arthur was talking, the words hire slow, fire fast kind of came to mind, and we've had a lot of struggles getting property management companies to try to manage the properties like we want them managed. And I think the default for a lot of property managers is, and I think this is not just in the property management industry, but people try to do as little as possible, and spread themselves thin. They get spread really thin. So what we were finding is kind of like Arthur was mentioning, is they had a tendency to do the easiest thing and try to call it done, get as many things checked off as possible. But going back to the hire slow, fire fast, spend a lot of time with people before you bring them on, and then in an industry like this, if the NOI, if occupancy starts diving, if the NOI starts diving, that's where the fire fast comes in, where you've got to cut your losses before they become bigger. My 2 cents anyway.
That's good. That's good 2 cents. I usually give them a try for about a month or 2. And if I don't see that they take my advice or my guidance into account, then there's a change. You need to change really fast. Yes.
And that's actually one thing we saw is, we had property managers that were very set in their ways and didn't want to change to adapt to what we were doing. That's an immediate sign up front. If they're not going to execute your business plan, they're not a good fit.
Yeah.
So. Right.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So I guess one of my questions, that's more of a rookie type of question. Since I mentioned like the self-storage, that's still something I've been looking at. I haven't really actually gotten anything going with that. I've called the guy up. He hasn't really, responded too well. So I guess one question is, have you had to work on off-market deals before? Has yours just been like, someone that can get you connected with the person? How's that?
I'm not very familiar with the self-storage market and the whole sector, because I've been concentrating on apartments, and it's been working really well for me. I know the economics of that business much better than I would know self-storage. But in the market of apartment buildings, it's very hard to find anything off market. But again, if you have a broker and you have a relationship and they have an off market deal, that they will drive that to you before they put it on the market, because as you know, they will earn double commission. So there's a self-interest there. So it's better to have relationships with brokers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The relationship business, and I mean, I don't think you're going to get a lot of these off-market deals if you don't have that relationship. I think the gold standard is when a broker gets something across his desk, they think of your name first. But if you got to think of what is it going to take to get there, they want, Arthur mentioned the self-interest piece. What does a broker want? They want to sell for a highest price as possible in the shortest amount of time. All right. So from a broker's self-interest, if they know somebody who's chomping at the bit, ready and able to buy, that's the person they're going to call first. So you need to be the person who is, ready and able to buy in their mind for them to call you with that off-market deal.
Sure. So I guess one more question that I have. So I guess, what would you, I'm, given my age and experience, what would you recommend would be like good steps to be taken? Because that's just what I've been doing like on my own, but I don't have like, a set way to go. So like, what would you recommend?
If I were you, which is hard to be, because you are who you are, and I am who I am. But if I were you, looking back probably at myself 25 years ago, I would start small and fast, but small. And I'll start with smaller properties. I'll start with maybe even single family homes that you can repair and rent or sell yourself. You don't need brokers for that. You can buy them, especially in Indiana. You can buy homes for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in the suburbs of Indiana. And if you have yourself and a couple of friends, or maybe a family that can help you out, fix them up, you can rent them on Airbnb. Mm-hmm. Every time I go to Indianapolis and I need to go and stay in Anderson or Muncie, there's nothing on Airbnb available. Mm-hmm. There are 2 or 3 listings and they're booked usually. So there's a huge market for that right now. You can start there. You can buy a very cheaply a house or a duplex or a triplex and fix it up yourself and then rent it on Airbnb and have a fantastic cash flow. And you can learn a lot of how to operate a rental business from that. And then you can build a lot of cash into that. I know people in Oklahoma City that have 5, 6, 7 Airbnb homes that they rent, and they made a lot of their startup capital from this Airbnb funds. Yeah. Every weekend it's booked. So, and you would never think, like, seriously, there's nobody in a suburb of Indianapolis have Airbnbs. No, people don't do that. for the same reason there's no Uber rides there. I couldn't get an Uber ride or Uber Eats to deliver me food in Anderson. So I mean, it's insane, but it is what it is. You look for markets like that, and those are the opportunities. So if I were you, I would look in your particular market of what's those opportunities are, because self-storage, a lot of people hunting right now for self-storage at 100 units plus, because it's a kind of a set business. And even if you buy something from somebody, you're going to buy something that is going to be a 4 to 5 cap deal. It's going to be really, really hard to make serious money on that, serious cash flow on that. So I would start somewhere where you can have much better cash flow, and that's probably residential, and then rentals, and then grow into maybe 5 to 10 units, and then 10 to 20 units rentals, and then grow from there at the speed that usually it happens. And just watching other people are doing it, that 2 to 3 years, you would have a portfolio of rentals, and then you can go and look at other product like self-storage or some other products. But I would start there. I would start in residential. I'll start with markets that can really give you really good cash flow, stuff you can do it yourself, and learn a lot from small pieces of property. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I mean, with your age, Manny, you have time on your side. I think the older you get, the less time is on your side, and I think that the tendency is to want to operate faster and faster and faster to get more done, but you've got time on your side. So I would say that the 2 ways I see most people getting in is, number one, exactly what Arthur said. Start small, start with some single family, start with some little stuff, and grow your portfolio year over year. And then the second way that I see very commonly happen is, latching on to somebody who's into the 100 plus market, because you by yourself, you're not going to be able to get into that 100 plus market without a team. So latch on to somebody and become a team member of somebody who's in that marketplace that you want to get to. I think both of them are very valid ways of doing it. Just depends on which way which way you choose to get there. But
one more thing I want to add, if you really want to learn the business, I think right now Marcus and Millichap is hiring. I'm sorry to make advertising.
No, it's fine.
But you can go into the office, and they like to see bright people like you, and you can learn the ropes.
Yeah,
really fast. And it's not only in Indianapolis. I think a lot of firms are hiring right now, so you can start there. You can work. You can just do basic stuff and watch what they do and how they do it, and get to know clients and get to know how the business is run fairly quick, and then start investing into the deals, and you'll learn your market much faster that way. So I know a lot of firms are hiring right now around the country in commercial real estate.
It's a good point. Learn as you earn, so to speak.
You'll get paid to learn.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are out of time, so thank you so much to both of you for spending some time with us today. One question for each of you before we end this. And Arthur, you're going first. How can listeners learn more about you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's the only social media site that I'm on. So everything else, I think, is a waste of time. So to me, LinkedIn is the best connection. So connect to me on LinkedIn, and I can answer any questions, help anybody who has any questions, or you can send me request on ReadyLand Go, and my team will respond to that as well.
All right, sounds good. So LinkedIn or ReadyLand Go, check it out if you want to contact them. And Manrup, same question for you. How can people get in touch with you?
For sure, yeah. So I've been using LinkedIn a lot. That's how I've actually found out about your podcast. That's how I got connected with people like Hirsch and Nick, with Revu, and so a lot of really smart people like that just through LinkedIn. So mainly just LinkedIn. And trying to a little bit get familiar with Twitter, but mainly just LinkedIn.
All right, and we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well. So for those listening, if anything that they've said has resonated with you, definitely reach out to them. And LinkedIn is a great place to connect with other people who are like-minded. So and there I go, giving a LinkedIn promo. So all right. So once again, thanks guys for coming on the show, and we'll talk again soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans, you're missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.